And welcome back. As the medium-term budgetary policy statement is upon us, there are concerns by businesses around the country on what relief could be given to them as margins become tighter and economic conditions become a lot more strenuous. We now speak to Jonathan Golberg about what businesses could potentially be doing to better management their bottom line costs, specifically pertaining to their personnel costs and their human resource costs. Many businesses are considering the options of retrenchments. However, retrenchments being a national crisis the country over, is there a bit different and a better way in which we can manage retrenchments? Johnny, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Really do appreciate it. Are we optimally managing retrenchments at a national level across the economy, but also are businesses thinking through retrenchment processes sufficiently?
Good evening to you and your viewers. I think there's a lot that can be done in terms of consolidation of resources. So I think what happens is it's too late by the time you issue a 189A or 189 notice. I think we need to start in sectors now that we know are going to run into trouble because of a number of international reasons. So a lot of trouble coming on a number of industrial fronts, and we need to now work collectively, government, trade unions and business, to get any solutions going forward. So there's a lot of disconnect and uncoordinated efforts. There's a lot of wastage in the system. So there is money. We need to coordinate that money and put it into the right places long before we issue notices, because by the time we issue notices, generally that's too late.
Where do those resources come from, and how do we consolidate these resources? There are various programs the country over at a policy level. If we look at the presidential stimulus program, right, which was meant specifically for jobs. There's also the youth employment stimulus program, and there's also various tax relief programs and incentives that are offered to businesses for employment purposes. You're suggesting we consolidate all of these instruments to better manage retrenchment processes or the eventuality of retrenchments. How do we do so?
Well, correctly, I think there's a lot of money that goes into SETAs. And again, if we really look at the return for job stability and education of the world of future work, I don't think we're getting enough as South Africans in respect to the return, in respect to the funds that are going to the Sector Educational Training Authority. There's a lot of wastage, there's a lot of duplication, and there are a lot of programs that have been run that don't really impact the bottom line. So I think the SETAs are a huge opportunity in respect of either saying we scrap some of them that are not working, we consolidate that money under the presidency or elsewhere, and we utilize that for industries that are going to undergo severe tough times because of international issues. Just take the changes in the motor industry worldwide, and combustion engines and batteries, and the conversion into battery cars, the imports from China around the world in respect to medium and small vehicles. So I think there's a lot that can be done. Again, in the 90s, when we already went through big problems with job losses in the mines, we negotiated retrenchment pacts with trade unions, reductions of certain salaries and wage issues for a short period, and benefits to consolidate and stabilize jobs. We now need to do the same now, otherwise we'll just continue to lose jobs. And for me, it's really, if you retrench 300-400 workers, I think as South Africans, we need a commitment. We need to find alternatives for those workers who want to continue to work in other areas. Give you one example. If you look at the truck drivers that have been taken from South Africa, heavy-duty truck drivers in the last 2 years, why aren't we training people who have been retrenched on Code 14? That should be a government, national, simple program, because people would immediately get jobs in South Africa and internationally.
Yeah. Let's circle back onto your argument around SETAs being a money drainer, so to speak. A lot of money going into that when it could be optimally used in other ways. It's a compulsory levy. It's a statutory cost that businesses and workers carry. What is your recommendation there? Are you suggesting that we scrap the levy and that money goes back into the coffers of businesses to keep workers employed, or that the money goes into the SETAs but it's just differently managed?
I think there are just so many SETAs over so many sectors, and many of them have been in administration. So I'd much rather have a simple one system where all the money goes into. I don't think anyone's advocating for the scrapping the 1%, but the efficiency in respect to the spend of that 1%. That 1% is meant to go back into organizations who train, develop and stabilize employment. It's not. If you did an industry analysis in any sector, you will not be seeing the results that we as South Africans, and I think we're in a stage where we as South Africans need to demand the South Africa we want. The South Africa we want is job stability first. You can't create new jobs if you can't stabilize existing jobs. So let's start with what we got. We've got a most unbelievable motor industry in this country. No one else in the world has got so many motor manufacturers. We need to stabilize it. We need to look after it. We need to stabilize those bigger jobs and build on what we have. And again, it's going to require some tough decisions in respect of consolidation, streamlining. That money can go into a central pot, but must be spent where it's meant to go. Take UIF. I don't think there's one South Africa that is really happy with the administration and spend of UIF at the moment. Unemployment Insurance Fund, billions and billions of rands that is meant to be for workers when they really need it. Ask workers whether they can access that money when they're going through layoff or retrenchment, or a worker's going through maternity
but
and
Johnny,
they don't have any maternity benefits.
That's also because it's a highly regulated fund, right? Many workers who are able to access it, unfortunately, can't buffer the entirety of the difficulties that they face. But it's a fund that seems to be well received. It was useful during COVID.
That's exactly what we did. In COVID, I was part of that. 65 billion paid out to workers who really needed it. But we're in COVID again. In respect of job losses and retrenchments, we're in that stage again. So the consolidation and focus we had under COVID, we need again. We pulled together government, trade unions, business, quickly to do unbelievable things. We need to not slack off. We need to do the same thing now.
Yeah, Johnny Golberg, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Johnny Golberg is with Global Business Solutions. It's a very, very important conversation, one that's incredibly sensitive.